So immediately we have a demo. The first one is, it's not a new DMV, but there's new rows added to the DMV sys dim exec query stats. And the new rows, columns, those new columns that have been added are total rows, min, max, and last rows. And these are very useful when you're doing a performance tuning kind of engagement, because now you can actually see, you can arrange your DMExec query stats view by logical reads, logical writes, by worker time, by elapsed time, or by the new rows that have been returned. So you can actually see how the queries have been returning a larger number of rows or not returning a large number of rows. The next DMV that is new is a DMV called sysdmos volume stats. Now, the way that we can use this is, let's go and have a look at what the file ID is for some of the files that we have in our system, and it's just referring to the current database, which is master. And you can see that I've got two files for master. One is the actual data file and one is the log file, and the file IDs are there. And what you do is you take that file ID and you plug it into a query like this, which goes and gets the sizes and everything for that file. And you can see the drive size, the DB file size, and how much free space is available. This is very useful for a DBA to be able to see the available free space. Now, I've only got one C drive on my VM here, but you can see how this can be useful if you've got a large number of mounted volumes and files on all different kinds of disk drives. And this is just information for one database. I have another query here that is the information for multiple databases, all of the databases at the same time. And you can see here, these are all on the same drive, but if you have all your databases on different drives and then they've got multiple files and those files on different drives, you can in one query see what your drive size is and how much free space you've got available and your database size. It's a very useful DMV for DBAs. Next, we're going to have a look at the next DMV, which is DMOS sysinfo and DMOS Windows info. And these are two very useful DMVs if you're a DBA that doesn't have physical access to the machine and you need to see what the system information is, like CPU count, hyperthread ratio, so you can see how many cores you have available, what the physical memory is for your machine, all that sort of thing. This is available right through a DMV that you can query in Windows, in SQL, as opposed to looking at it in Windows. And DMOS Windows info will tell you the exact Windows information for that system, as in the Windows server that SQL is running on. So you can see exactly what you are using. Now, Windows Server 2008 was Windows Release 6.0, and Windows Server 2008 R.O.U.S is this Windows Release 6.1. You can see that it's got Service Pack, and you can see the actual version and language that has been installed. If you look at this web page over here, this article, MSDN article, that'll tell you a list of what the SKUs mean, and this SKU actually means Enterprise Edition, and this OS language version 1033. If you look on this MSDN article, it'll tell you that that is US English. So this version of Windows is Windows 2008 R.O.U.S Service Pack 1 Enterprise Edition using US English. Alrighty, let's go look at another very useful DMV. This is very useful, like I say, if you're a DBA that doesn't have physical access to the machine. You can go and see if SQL has ever generated a memory dump, and this returns one row for each memory dump file that has been generated by SQL. This has none because I've never generated a memory dump, but this is exactly what this DMV returns. There's two other very useful DMVs that are good if the DBA doesn't have physical access to the box. This is a list of all server services, and it tells you exactly what the startup type is for each service, what the status is, the process ID, your startup time, last startup time, the service account that it's using, and the executable that it's using, and very interesting, is it clustered, and what is the cluster node name that it's running on. So this will tell you, if you're in a cluster situation, what actual node that service is running on. And this sysdm server registry actually gives you a list of all the SQL Server registry entries that is applicable. And on my system, I've got 69 entries here all the way down, and this gives you exactly what the registry key is, the value name, and the data in that value name. And this is for all SQL Server related registry keys. So this is another very, very useful DMV for DBAs. Okay. And as you can see, that is the lightning sand that we're talking about, the DMVs that you can use to get out of lightning sand. Now, let's go over some extended events. Extended events were first introduced with the release of SQL Server 2008. They were very powerful, but they were not really adopted due to the fact that they were difficult to understand, difficult to set up, difficult to configure, mainly because they were used in a command line kind of query driven way. Now, query toolset works great for DMVs when you're just returning things in a table, but DBAs were kind of unwilling to do that for extended events because they were so complex. They were much more complex to configure and understand compared to the traditional tools such as Profiler or SQL Trace or Activity Monitor or stuff like that. So what Microsoft has done now is they've introduced a new wizard, new UI that is going to hopefully make things a lot easier to use extended events. The reason is because Profiler is actually deprecated now in SQL Server 2012 and will be discontinued in a future version of SQL Server. So extended events are the way that needs to be used to monitor and to troubleshoot a server. So Microsoft needed to build something that DBAs were actually going to be using.